The Cold Planet and the Stranger's Cabin. The cold wind howled like a wild beast outside the broken cockpit as Daniel opened his eyes inside the wrecked escape pod that had fallen from orbit. Ice had started forming on the metal walls and his breath came out in sharp clouds. He had landed on an unknown alien planet after a system failure during a routine delivery mission. The emergency beacon was damaged and his supplies were limited. If he didn't find shelter soon, he would freeze to death. He stepped out into deep snow that reached up to his knees. The sky was gray and full of swirling ice crystals. The world around him was silent and dead. Only the wind screamed across the frozen hills. His boots crunched on the ice as he moved forward looking for any kind of shelter. The temperature was dropping fast. His body shook, and his fingers were going numb. Then, through the storm, he saw something. It was a small wooden cabin, half buried in snow near a frozen stream. Its roof was bent but still standing. Daniel forced his tired legs to move and reach the door. He knocked once, then pushed it open slowly. The door creaked and inside it was dark. But before he could take another step, a soft growl came from the shadows of figures stepped into the light of a dying fire. It was not human. She was tall, with skin like shimmering silver and deep violet eyes that glowed softly. Her face was sharp and beautiful, and her long white hair hung loose over her shoulders. She wore a tight cloak made from animal fur and held a strange curved weapon aimed straight at him. Her lips trembled, but not from fear. She looked furious. "Shut up, human," she snapped. "We're freezing. Get in my bed now." Daniel blinked, unsure if he heard her right. His mind struggled to make sense of her words. She took a shaky step forward, her weapon still pointed. "You don't understand, this storm is death. If we don't share body heat, we die. You are warm, I am not. No arguments. Choose now or freeze. Outside." Daniel held up his hand slowly, showing he had no weapon. He didn't want to fight, and clearly she didn't either. She was desperate and cold, and alone just like him. "Okay, I won't fight. I just need warmth too," he said gently. Bibi didn't reply. She only turned her back and walked toward the bed that was just a pile of old blankets and animal hides in a corner. Her steps were slow and weak. She sank down and pulled a blanket over herself, then looked back at him with tired, glowing eyes. He walked over slowly, still unsure if he was walking into a trap. He lay down beside her, keeping a little distance. The bed was hard, the air still freezing, and his body stiff with cold. She didn't move for a long moment. Then, with a low growl, she grabbed his arm and pulled it over her body, forcing him to hold her close. Her skin was ice cold. She shivered violently. But after a few minutes, her shaking slowed. Her back pressed tightly against his chest. Her silver hair tickled his face. "I'm Kira," she whispered without turning. "Exiled warrior. Betrayed and left to die on this cursed planet. Don't think I need you. This is only survival." Daniel didn't answer right away. He was still shocked. The warmth of her body slowly returned. Not much, but enough to keep him from freezing. He listened to her breathing slow down. She was falling asleep. She had trusted him enough to close her eyes. He looked at the wooden roof above them and thought about how strange fate was. Just hours ago, he was floating in space. Now he was holding a mysterious alien woman in a snow-covered cabin, while death howled outside the walls. He whispered softly, "I'm Daniel. Just a cargo pilot. I don't know why I'm here either." She didn't reply. She was already asleep, breathing soft and steady. The fire in the corner flickered low, casting shadows on the walls. Outside, the storm screamed louder, snow slamming against the windows. But inside, two strangers held on to life together. Daniel stayed, awake long into the night, listening to the storm and the heartbeat of the alien woman in his arms, wondering who she really was and what had happened to her. One thing was sure. This planet was dangerous, and Kira was even more dangerous than the cold. Heat sharing protocol. The morning came slow and quiet like a ghost floating through the cold air. The storm outside had stopped, but the world was still buried under thick snow. The cabin groaned as ice settled on its roof and wind whispered through the cracks in the wooden walls. Daniel opened his eyes to find the alien woman still pressed against him. Her silver skin had lost its blue tint, and her breathing was strong and calm now. She had stopped shivering sometime during the night. Her body was warmer now, and she had wrapped both arms around him during sleep. Without even knowing, he didn't move at first. He didn't want to wake her. Her face was soft now, with no anger, just peace. She looked so different from the fierce warrior who had barked orders at him just hours ago. Then slowly she stirred. Her violet eyes opened and locked with his. For a moment she didn't say anything. Then she realized how close they were and pushed him away quickly. "Don't get ideas, human. It was survival, nothing more," she said coldly as she sat up and pulled her fur cloak tighter around her. Daniel sat up too, rubbing his hands together to chase away the cold that had returned. He looked around the cabin. A fire pit in the corner was now dead. A small pile of broken furniture and wood stood nearby. There was no food, only a few metal cans in a box and a small water purifier half working. "We need to relight the fire," Daniel said quietly. Kira didn't answer. She stood up and began searching through a locked chest near the wall. She pulled out 2 long metal rods shaped like spears with glowing edges. She looked at him over her shoulder. "You know how to defend yourself, human." Daniel shook his head. Slowly, "I was a pilot, not a fighter." She looked disappointed and turned back to the weapons. "I was a protector once, elite guard of the High Nest, until I refused to burn a village full of children. They called it weakness. I called it honor. They exiled me here. No food, no tech. Just cold and silence." Daniel listened in silence. He didn't know what to say. Her voice was flat, like she had repeated this story many times to herself. But now she had finally told someone. Kira handed him one of the rods. "This is a pulse staff. It cuts through ice and armor. Hold it tight. If anything comes through that door tonight, you use it. If not for me, then for yourself." He took it in, both hands. It felt heavy and powerful. Like a promise, she moved toward the broken window and looked outside. The world was white, nothing but snow and sharp rocks. No trees, no life. "There's a cave 2 hours west. We might find old supplies, maybe batteries or heating cells. If we don't go now, we won't survive the next storm." Daniel stood beside her. The wind was picking up again. Time was short. They gathered what little they had. Wrapped in old fur and holding their weapons, they stepped outside into the cold once more. The snow crunched under their boots as they moved across the frozen land. No words were spoken for a long time. Just breath and frost and the quiet howl of wind. At one point Kira slipped and Daniel caught her. For a moment, her hand stayed in his. Then she pulled it back. "You're not weak for caring," he said. She didn't reply, but her pace slowed, and she stayed closer to him after that. The cave was hidden behind a wall of ice. It looked like nothing from outside, but Kira used her pulse staff to melt a hole in the wall. Inside it was dark and full of echoes. They moved inside step by step until they found a metal crate buried under frozen rubble. Kira opened it with shaking hands. Inside were heating cells and a flare gun. She smiled for the first time. "This might give us another week." Daniel smiled too. Hope had returned to their frozen world. As they turned to leave, a deep growl came from deeper inside the cave. Something was not happy they had entered. Kira grabbed Daniel's arm and whispered, "Stay close. That sound doesn't belong to anything human." And in the shadows, something large moved. Something watching, something waiting. The secret under the floor. They ran through the snow as fast as their frozen legs allowed. Behind them in the cave, something large let out a deep rumble. It was not chasing them, but it was awake now and angry. Kira didn't look back. She kept moving with her pulse staff ready and her eyes sharp. Daniel followed close behind, carrying the crate they had found. The heating cells inside it clanked softly with every step. They reached the cabin just before the sky turned red with the alien sun's glow. Daniel fell against the door, breathing hard, while Kira quickly checked the area for signs of danger. Once inside, she bolted the door and dropped to her knees near the fire pit. Within minutes, she had the heating cell working. Again, a steady hum filled the room and warmth spread through the cabin like a gentle hand. For a moment, they both just sat there, eyes closed, skin thawing. "You didn't tell me something was living in that cave," Daniel said finally. Kira opened her eyes and looked at him without emotion. "If I had told you, would you have gone?" He didn't answer. She had a point. He stood and stretched his sore muscles. The cold had numbed his back and his boots were soaked. He began to explore the cabin again, now that he had a little more light. Most of it was broken old furniture and scattered supplies. But then his foot caught on a wooden plank near the wall. It moved under pressure. He knelt and pulled at it. The board lifted with a creak, revealing a hidden space underneath. Inside was something strange. A small glowing cube wrapped in wires and alien metal. It blinked slowly with red and blue lights. Daniel reached out, but Kira grabbed his hand and pulled it back. Her face had turned pale, her eyes wide. "Where did you find that?" she asked sharply. "Under the floor. What is it?" She didn't answer right away. Her breath quickened. She stood and stepped back like the object might bite her. "That's a military tracker. It can send signals across the galaxy. This one is stolen. It's how they find traitors like me." Daniel stared at the cube, now feeling its danger. "Did you hide it here?" "No, I didn't even know it was there," she said, her voice cold with fear. Daniel stood slowly, holding the cube in his hand. "Someone wanted them to find you, or maybe they already have." Kira looked at him with something new in her eyes. Not anger, not hate, but pain. "I was not supposed to survive this exile. Maybe someone thought I would hide in this cabin. Maybe they placed it here to make sure I was never forgotten." Daniel placed the cube on the table and stepped back. It pulsed softly like a heartbeat. Neither of them touched it again. That night the storm returned. Snow slammed against the walls and howling wind tore through the trees. Outside, the heating cell kept the room warm, but their hearts were frozen with worry. They didn't speak much. They just sat close near the fire, each lost in thought. As the hours passed, Daniel stood and walked toward the window. He looked out into the weird storm, but saw nothing. Then he saw it, a red light blinking in the sky far away. Then another. And another. They were not stars. Kira stood beside him now. Her voice was steady but quiet. "They're here. Someone picked up the signal. We don't have much time." Daniel looked at her. "What do we do now?" She turned to him slowly and placed a small blade in his hand. "We fight." He had never fought in his life. He was a pilot, not a soldier. But her eyes told him the truth. If he didn't stand now, they would both die here. He sat down by the fire again, his hand holding the blade tightly. Kira sat beside him. "Tonight we rest. Tomorrow we prepare. You're not trained, but I can teach you enough to survive." Daniel looked into the flames, thinking about his quiet life before the crash. He never thought one day he would be hiding in a frozen cabin with a wanted alien warrior, holding a stolen beacon of death and learning to fight for his life. But now he had no choice. The fire cracked softly, and outside the snow kept falling. The red lights in the sky blinked again. Closer, brighter. Coming. The hunt begins. The morning came without sunshine, only a gray sky full of snowflakes that fell like ashes from a dead sky. Daniel stood by the window watching the horizon. He had barely slept. His hand still held the small blade Kira had given him. The red lights were gone now, but he knew what they meant. Ships, drones, soldiers, people looking for the alien woman he now called his only friend. Kira moved behind him without sound. She had tied her long white hair into a thick braid and wore a long coat made from thick alien fur. Her face was hard again, no softness in her eyes now. "We have less than a day before they arrive," she said while loading her pulse staff. "They won't talk. They'll shoot first and burn the rest." Daniel turned to face her. "Is there a way out? A place we can hide?" She shook her head slowly. "No ship can fly in this weather, and the caves are not safe. The storm traps, signals, and heat. But the cabin is strong, and I have traps buried near the edge of the trees. If we fight smart, we can survive long enough to make them retreat." Daniel didn't feel brave. His hands were shaking and his stomach was tight. But he nodded. "Teach me. Show me what to do." Kira gave him a quick look, then tossed him a second weapon, a short energy spear that hummed softly. "This is lighter than the pulse staff. Aim for the neck or the chest. Never hesitate. If you wait, you die." She spent the next few hours training him in the open area behind the cabin. The snow reached up to his boots, and the cold bit his face, but he kept moving. Kira showed him how to swing without wasting energy and how to block without losing balance. Her movements were smooth like a dancer, but every strike held power. Daniel fell many times, but he stood again each time. By midday, he could hit a target without missing. His arms hurt and his breath came fast, but Kira gave him a small nod of approval. "We don't need perfect. We just need alive." Back inside the cabin, they built defenses. Kira opened a metal box, hidden in the floor. Inside were small round mines shaped like metal stones. She gave Daniel half of them. "Place these near the trees. If someone steps on them, they go flying," she said calmly. They moved outside together, placing traps in a wide circle. The snow helped hide everything. By nightfall, they were back inside near the fire, their weapons beside them. The silence was heavy. Only the crack of burning wood broke it. Daniel looked at Kira. She sat across from him, staring into the flames, her face unreadable. "What happens if they take you?" he asked softly. She looked up at him, and for the first time her voice was low, not sharp. "They'll put me in a cell where the sun never touches, or maybe they'll end it quickly." "I don't know." Daniel looked down at the floor. His hand clenched the spear beside him. "Not if I can stop them." Kira tilted her head slowly. "You would fight for me. Even when I've done nothing for you. You let me in. You didn't kill me. You shared your fire. That's enough." Kira stared at him for a long moment. Then she stood and walked to the window. "They're here." Outside in the distance, 3 red lights hovered just above the snow. Slowly, a large shape moved between the trees. A tall, armored figure stepped into view, glowing with blue energy. His face was hidden behind a metal mask, but his voice echoed across the air. "Kira of the Frosted Nest, you are charged with betrayal and cowardice. Come out and face judgment." Daniel watched as Kira lifted her weapon and stepped toward the door. He grabbed her arm. "You're not going alone." She looked at him with sharp eyes, then gave a tiny nod. They stepped outside together into the cold night. The wind cut across their faces and the snow swirled around their feet. The enemy commander raised his weapon and his soldiers followed. Kira stepped forward and shouted, "You want a coward? I'll show you what one really looks like." Then she charged. The traps exploded, and the hunt began. A fire in the snow. The blast lit the night like lightning. 2 soldiers were thrown backward, their metal armor cracking as fire swallowed the trees. Smoke rose into the gray sky as the snow burned and hissed. Kira moved like a ghost through the smoke, her pulse staff glowing with deadly blue light. Daniel followed her, his heart pounding so loud he could barely hear the explosions. He held the short energy spear close to his chest and tried to remember her training. Step forward, stab, pull back. Don't think, just move. A drone flew toward them from the right, its red eye blinking. Kira threw a blade, and it hit the drone straight, in the center. Sparks flew, and it crashed into the snow beside Daniel. The enemy commander shouted again from the ridge. Kira, surrender now. Your death can be quick or slow. Kira ignored him. She moved through the fire like a storm, her silver skin glowing and her hair like white fire behind her. She struck one soldier across the chest. His armor split open and he fell without a sound. Daniel turned to find another soldier running straight at him. This one was bigger, faster, and armed with 2 sharp weapons. Daniel's legs froze for a second, but then he remembered her voice in his mind. No hesitation. He stepped to the side and swung the spear. It missed, but the second swing hit the soldier's leg. The man roared and fell forward. Daniel brought the spear down again and again until the soldier stopped moving. His hands were shaking. His breath came fast, but he was alive. Kyra appeared beside him, her eyes scanning the trees. Good. Now, move. They ran to the other side of the cabin where the last 2 mines were hidden. The enemy was circling the building, trying to trap them inside. Kira grabbed Daniel's hand and pulled him behind a large frozen rock. She gave him a small device. This triggers the last defense. When I say, now press it. Before he could answer, she was gone again. Kira ran straight toward the commander, who stood with 4 guards at his side. He raised his weapon and fired, but she rolled through the snow and came up fast, her staff cutting the air. She hit one guard in the head and the helmet flew off. The second guard tried to block her, but she moved too fast, slicing his leg and knocking him down. The commander grabbed her arm and threw her back. She hit the ground hard and didn't move. Daniel saw it all. His fingers pressed the trigger. The last 2 mines exploded under the feet of the guards. The snow lifted into the air and the commander staggered. Kyra rose from the ground, her mouth bleeding, but her grip strong. She drove her staff into his chest, but his armor held. He hit her again, this time in the ribs, and she dropped to one knee. Daniel ran forward, his legs screaming in pain, his arms shaking. He tackled the commander from behind, but the man didn't fall. He turned and hit Daniel across the face with a heavy metal fist. The world spun. Daniel landed in the snow, his vision blurry. Kira saw him fall. Something inside her snapped. She stood again, pushed past the pain, and charged with everything she had. Her staff glowed bright blue, and she drove it into the weak spot under the commander's arm. The blade sank deep. He gasped and staggered. "You exiled the wrong warrior," she whispered as he collapsed. The snow fell quiet again. Only the fire and the wind spoke now. Kira dropped to her knees beside Daniel. His face was cut and bleeding, but he was alive. He opened his eyes slowly and saw her looking down at him. "Did we win?" he whispered. She nodded and smiled just a little. "Yes. You fought like one of us." He laughed weakly. "I fought like a scared human." She touched his cheek gently. "And that saved me." They stayed there in the snow while the fire burned low behind them. The cabin was damaged, the land scorched, but they were alive. Daniel looked up at the sky. The red lights were gone for now. Kira looked down at him. "You could have run, but you stayed." Daniel took her hand. "You were worth staying for." And for the first time since she was exiled, Kira believed it. She shivered again, but not from cold. The storm had passed, and the sky was now clear and full of quiet stars. The fires had faded, and only smoke rose from the edge of the forest. The cabin still stood, though one wall had black burn marks, and the roof had a hole. But inside it was warm again. Daniel lay on the old bed, breathing slow and steady. His head was wrapped in bandages, and one of his arms was in a sling. His body ached, but the pain was soft now, like a whisper, not a scream. Kira sat beside him with her knees pulled close and her cloak wrapped tight around her shoulders. Her violet eyes were not cold anymore. She looked at him and for a long time said nothing. He opened his eyes and gave a small smile. "I'm not dead." Right. She nodded once. No. You're just bruised and foolish. Daniel laughed a little, but it hurt, so he stopped. You're welcome, by the way. I did save your life. Sort of. She looked down at the floor and spoke in a low voice. I never expected that. No one ever protected me. Not after I was exiled. Daniel looked at her with soft eyes. You protected me first. You let me in. You gave me fire. You shared your bed to save my life. You didn't have to. She turned her face away, but he saw her blink fast like she was hiding something. I didn't do it for you. I did it because I didn't want to die alone. Daniel sat up slowly, his face twisting, with pain, but he didn't stop. And now, Kira didn't answer at first. Her fingers gripped the blanket tightly. I don't know. I've spent so long surviving that I forgot how to feel safe. But now with you, I feel something strange. He reached out and touched her hand. She didn't pull away. That's called peace, he said softly. Kira looked at him and her lips trembled a little. She leaned forward just slightly. I still shiver. Not from cold. From something inside I can't explain. Daniel smiled and nodded. Me too. She looked down at their hands and whispered, Can I stay close? Just for tonight. No weapons. No plans. Just warmth. He moved over, making space. Always. She slid beside him under the blanket and rested her head on his shoulder. Her body was warm now, not from heat cells or fire, but from something deeper. She didn't speak again. She didn't have 2 hours passed. Outside, the stars moved across the sky. A soft wind blew through the broken roof, but inside the cabin it was calm. Daniel didn't sleep. He stayed awake, feeling her heartbeat next to his. She was not cold anymore. And neither was he. In the early morning, Kira woke and sat up slowly. Her eyes were calm and her face was softer than ever before. I had a dream, she said. There was no snow, no fire, no exile, just sky and a small home on a green hill. Daniel sat up beside her. Was I there? She gave a small smile. You were planting vegetables. Very badly. He laughed. Well, that sounds right. I don't know anything about farming. Kira stood and walked to the door. The sun was rising now. Pale blue light touched the snow. I want that dream. I want it to be real. Daniel came to her side and looked out at the land. Then let's make it real. Together. She turned to him, and for the first time, she looked unsure. I don't know how to live a quiet life. I only know how to fight. To survive. He reached for her hand again. Then learn with me. I'll teach you how to grow carrots. You teach me how to hold a sword without dropping it. Kira looked down at their joined hands. I never thought I'd hear someone say that. Not to me. You're not alone anymore. Daniel said, You never have to be again. The snow was still thick. The world still cold. But inside that cabin, something new had begun. Hope. The signal of hope. A week had passed since the battle in the snow. The sky had turned brighter each day and the storms had grown weaker. The wind still whispered through the trees, but it no longer screamed. The danger had faded like smoke after. Fire Daniel and Kira had repaired most of the damage to the cabin. Together they fixed the roof with old metal plates. They cleaned the floors and made stronger walls using wood from broken trees. Daniel even built a small shelf for tools, though it leaned to one side and Kira teased him for it. They laughed more. Now, they cooked simple meals with what little they had. Sometimes they sat for hours near the fire without saying a word, just enjoying the silence together. But Daniel knew they could not stay hidden forever. He had been working quietly on something important. A new beacon. Every night after Kira fell asleep, he repaired the old communication module from his escape pod. It took days of careful work using broken wires and melted circuits, but finally it lit up. A soft green glow blinked once, twice, then stayed solid. The signal was ready. On the 7th night he showed it to her. She stared at it in silence for a long time. "You called them," she said softly. "I called for help." Daniel replied, "Not from your people, from mine. An Earth ship passed this region 2 months ago. They might still be near." Kira looked away, her eyes cloudy. "They'll take me. Lock me up. I'm still a criminal to them." Daniel stepped closer and touched her shoulder. "Not if we tell the truth. I recorded what you told me. About the order you refused. About the tracker under the floor. About the men who tried to kill us. I sent it all with the signal." She turned her head slowly. "You trusted me that much?" He nodded. "I trust you with my life." For a long time she said nothing. Then she stepped forward and wrapped her arms around him. Not for warmth. Not for survival. Just to hold him. The next morning the sky changed. A flash of light appeared in the clouds. A slow humming filled the air. Then a sleek silver ship broke through the atmosphere and landed near the frozen stream. It was small and marked with the Earth Alliance symbol. A rescue vessel. Daniel and Kira stood outside the cabin as the ship's door opened. A human officer stepped out holding a scanner and a small device. Daniel Kerr, cargo pilot. "Signal received. We've come to take you home." Daniel nodded and pointed to Kira. "She comes too." The officer frowned and looked at the scanner. "She's not on our list. Alien female. No records. No clearance. We can't." "She saved my life," Daniel said firmly, "and she risked her own to protect civilians. Check the message I sent. It has everything. If she stays here, she dies. If Earth still believes in justice, then give her a chance." The officer looked at them both, then tapped the device in his hand. A light blinked. After a moment a voice came through. "Command has received your file. Her charges are under review. Bring her in. Do not separate them." The officer gave a small nod. "You're both coming with us." Kira took Danielle's hand as they stepped into the ship together. The door closed behind them with a soft hiss. Inside it was warm and bright, cleaner than anything she had seen in years. She looked out the window as the ship lifted into the sky. The cabin became smaller and smaller until it vanished in the snow. Daniel sat beside her. She rested her head on his shoulder. "I never thought I would leave that planet." "You're not just leaving," Daniel whispered. "You're starting over." She smiled gently. "Where will we go?" "Wherever we want," he replied. Weeks later, on a green hill near the edge of a quiet Earth village, stood a small house made of stone and wood. A garden grew in front of it full of vegetables and strange alien flowers. Birds sang in the trees and wind moved gently through the leaves. Inside that house lived a human and an exiled warrior. Every night they sat near a real fire with no fear and no need to fight. They told stories. They made plans. They laughed. And every morning when the cold wind touched the land, Kira still reached for Daniel. But not because she was freezing, because she had finally found home. The end.